The Chaser Report is recorded on Gadigal land.
Striving for mediocrity in a world of excellence. This is the Chaser Report.
Hello and welcome to the Chaser Report with Dom and Charles.
Yes.
As we record this today, there are 70,000 people trapped at the Burning Man Festival in the desert in Nevada.
Wow. Okay. By the time you hear this, they will either have just all made it back home and it'll all be fine, or they'll all be dead. And if they are all dead, we didn't know that when we recorded this.
Yes.
But Charles, Burning Man famously in the desert,
Yes.
very, very hot. I assume they've been cut off and there's some sort of heat stroke going on. Are they all is it sunburn that's the problem here?
For the first time since 1986 when it started, it has rained in the desert and they are waterlogged. It's like Splendor in the Grass each year. But in the fucking Nevada, and they're cut off. They're stranded. They can't do anything. You can't move. They can't get any trucks in. They're just completely stranded in this desert. And they've been told to conserve water and food because there's no way to get in or out.
If you wanted any better metaphor for the absolute fuckness of the climate in 2023, a waterlogged Burning Man might just be it. More in a sec. So, Charles, for those who haven't come across Burning Man before, I mean, you and I have a mutual friend who's been to this thing many times.
Oh, yes.
And tells us constantly we need to come.
It's a festival of venereal disease
Yes.
and having lots of sex.
I think that's what it is, yeah.
Yes.
So, basically, a massive amount of trendy people
Yes.
gather in the desert.
They all take ayahuasca.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is a special type of drug, much prized in South American cultures for making you vomit horrendously.
Yeah, it's a little bit like a death cap mushroom, but not quite as extreme.
Yeah.
People claim that they've, had visions on it. Panau wrote a whole album based on ayahuasca that did really well in the charts, so maybe there's something to it. But so it's something that people who like saying, look, you haven't expanded your consciousness enough. This is the sort of place that they go.
Yes.
It's full of art installations. It looks amazing, and I've always wanted to go. Thank fuck this isn't the year that I did, because it sounds disastrous. But Charles, from memory, Burning Man is absolutely massive. So this temporary city arises with, did you say 70,000 people?
70,000 people. So I'll just give you a little bit of the history, which is it started in 1986 on a San Francisco beach, but then it started growing quite rapidly. So they went, okay, where are we going to put it? And so they went, I don't know, this vast open desert is a great place to go. And so it's now between 60 and 70,000 people travel there each year to northwest Nevada, and they create a temporary city, because obviously 70,000 people is the size of a city.
Yes.
Called Black Rock City, and form a community dedicated to art, self-expression, and self-reliance.
And fucking. Also fucking.
And mostly fucking.
So,
right.
and it's amazing, because what they do is they turn up, they set up the city, and then they have this policy that nothing's left there. So they just come and disappear. It's very eco-friendly.
Yes. And the reason why it's called Burning Man is at the end of every festival, they put all the stuff that they've created. So they create, like you go and build a structure of an artwork, I don't know, an homage to Elon Musk or something.
Yes,
presumably.
that's exactly what they do.
That's the sort of thing. And then you pile it all into the middle and create this structure called Burning Man.
In the shape of a man.
In the shape of a man.
Elon Musk.
And then you set it on fire.
Set it on fire, and it looks absolutely amazing at night. It's like the big culmination is to just burn everything down. Actually, that is exactly what Peter Dutton plans to do the day after the referendum, incidentally.
Yes.
But, so this is this big event. It sounds hugely exciting. It's the sort of thing where if you've been there and you just kind of go, if you've been to Burning Man, it was just amazing this year. It was just so inspiring. It's basically, from what I've seen from the photos, it's kind of like the aesthetic of Mad Max.
Yes.
Like they're in the desert.
Yes.
Everything's clapped together pieces of scrap metal.
Yes.
But with less killing.
Imagine the plot line of Mad Max Fury Road, but instead of there being no water, there's too much water.
This year it's Burning Man. So this is normally the problem, because you're in the desert, you've got to bring the water in with you, and it's normally the scarcest thing. This is the irony of this year. So what's happened?
So actually the festival went on for a few days before it started raining. It then started raining. This is on about Friday of last week, and then none of the trucks could go in or out, and people were actually having trouble even walking around because the mud was so sort of suctiony, right? One person did actually die. They're still investigating the cause of that. But by Sunday, people had started to run out of food and water, right? So they've started leaving messages going, if you are still there, you have to just shelter in place. Some of the organisers have said, and just get with the vibe and enjoy this, ability to, stay close and make new friends.
If you take ayahuasca, it's probably amazing, the sound of the water. You could, like, the whole of the universe is contained in one drop of water, would be the sort of thing you'd say.
But the funniest irony is that this is a community and a festival based on radical self-reliance, right?
Sure.
And the main problem that they've faced is that the trucks that come in and clean the toilets each night have not been able to make it in since Friday. And so there's nowhere to go to the toilet.
This really is Lord of the Flies. if instead of schoolboys they just had basically wankers.
Yeah.
It's like if you're a tech billionaire, you go to Burning Man and you pretend that you're still connected to real people. That's kind of what it's for.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I think Elon Musk and Grimes have turned up there several times. So it's exactly that. And, I'm sure Jeff Bezos goes there and
probably
tries to pick up and
where he met that woman. Anyway, okay, so this is pretty hilarious because presumably what they want in this festival of radical self-reliance is a government assistance.
To
is it
sweep in? No, that's what they're calling for. They're calling for emergency services to come in, and they're complaining that no one's helping them. And you're going, but you can't. Like, there's nothing. So the one thing that they can do is apparently you can walk 16 kilometres to get out of there through the mud. And there's been several people who've tried that, and they've texted back going, and sent out tweets going, only do this if you're frighteningly fit, because 16 kilometres through mud,
that would be exhausting.
Is horrifically exhausting. So, I say we just say goodbye to those 70,000 people.
You think it's over?
Well, I just think they wanted to be self-reliant. Good luck to them.
Can't they put out like an ice cream tub and just collect the water that's falling from the heavens? Or did it was there a shitload of water and then it hasn't rained anymore? Because that would be the worst. If it was raining and you didn't know you needed to conserve it.
Yeah, I think that is... here, I've got some video. This will be really good for all the listeners. Look at this video. It's pretty muddy.
Wow.
I mean,
it is very like my time at Splendor when it rained.
That's right. There's not really
an endless pit of
where
mud.
are the 70,000 people? Just to explain what we're saying, there's a sort of vast expanse of really quite thick, horrible mud.
Well, Charles, the time I went to Splendor when it absolutely bucketed down the whole time, I bought the last pair of gumboots in the whole of Splendor. Do you know how much I paid?
A lot.
Well, actually, in hindsight, it doesn't sound that bad now, but back then, $50.
$50
for gumboots, and it was the best $50 I've ever spent because there is nothing that makes you like gumboots turns mud into a fun opportunity, rather than just the worst thing ever. Well, but imagine if they didn't have any of that. You wouldn't have that gear. You'd have sunblock. That's all you need.
People are reporting that they're putting plastic bags over their feet, but that most people have actually just taken off their shoes. So I think that's the sort of community that we're talking about.
Well, they were nude already. Come on, they were definitely nude already. Yeah. So, but can't they just all take ayahuasca and just go to sleep and not worry about it?
Yeah, except for the whole not having any food or water.
We cope without food. The water's a problem, I'll admit that.
The one thing that is interesting is comedian Chris Rock managed to hitch a ride out of there.
Well, of course he did.
So he walked 10 kilometres through the mud.
Wow.
And then some fan saw him. They were obviously sort of on the outer rims of the thing, and this guy had a big truck and gave him a ride out of there on the back of his ute.
You would give Chris Rock a ride in your ute. But it's the kind of place where you would run into someone like Chris Rock and potentially fuck them. I mean, that's just the way Burning Man is. You've got to understand. They say it's about art and culture.
They picked up Chris Rock.
Yeah, they picked up Chris Rock. That's
quote
right.
Unquote, yeah.
The Chaser Report. News a few days after it happens.
Well, Charles, that does sound like an absolute disaster
and metaphor
and slightly ironic situation.
Yeah.
And Charles, it reminds me of something else that needs to be discussed at this point.
What?
Because the most unlikely, I mean, Burning Man having rain is certainly unlikely, except in this age we know that every terrible climate result is imminent, basically. The climate's just screwy everywhere, and they should have known that. They should have packed a lifeboat, basically, with them, inflatable dinghies to Burning Man. But, Charles, even more unlikely than that, than rain at Burning Man, is an event called the Fire Festival 2. Now, to recap, I watched a documentary on the first Fire Festival. It's one of the most enjoyable. We talked about it on radio at the time. One of the most enjoyable bits of irony ever. All these idiots got sucked in by influencers to traveling to a Caribbean island for this festival.
Yeah,
supposedly all these big artists were going to play.
They booked out the entire island.
Yeah, they had this entire island.
And then they didn't realise that if you book a party at an island, you then need to cater for them.
Yes.
And if you book an entire island, it probably doesn't have the facilities.
There was
for
no
catering.
accommodation. There was no nothing. And I remember the scene where people were absolutely desperate for food. And what they got was they got buns and burger cheese, like Kraft singles.
It's the sort of idea that sounds really good when you're on ayahuasca.
So some tickets to the Fire Festival cost $150,000, and they were promised wellness activities and villas and yachts and things.
That's right, because you flew in, didn't
That's
you?
right.
And,
You had
they
to fly
flew-
in.
Yeah.
And it turned into the Hunger Games. People, all they had was a mattress. Some people rode their mattresses out to sea to try and get out of the festival. If you want Schadenfreude, like if you enjoy laughing at people's misery who kind of deserve it because they believe influencers, watch the documentary. I think there's more than one.
It's on Netflix.
Yeah, it's amazing to watch. But the guy who started it, Billy McFarlane, is one of these absolutely delusional visionaries, not unlike Charles Firth in a way. He ended up going to jail. He admitted to defrauding investors of $26 million. And here's the thing. When he was in solitary confinement, apparently he wrote out a 50-page plan for how to do Fire Festival properly. And he says this
In jail.
In jail. I'm quoting here. I wrote out this 50-page plan on how we would take this overall interest in demand in fire. Surely there was no demand left. All right. In terms of the worst brand in the world, Fire Festival would have to be up there.
It's sort of like Qantas deciding to come up with a plan.
It's the Qantas Festival.
Yeah.
And how we would take my ability to bring people from all around the world together to make the impossible happen. Billy, the point is, the impossible didn't happen. Like, the predictable happened. It was a disaster. Point one of his plan was to, inverted commas, allow me to be me while executing fire to the highest level. So he's planning to step back.
Yes.
He's stepping back using the brand.
Yes.
But it's actually going ahead. And not
No,
only that,
it's not.
they've sold 100 tickets.
What?
For $500 US.
That doesn't sound like that many tickets.
I presume Netflix is portable to make the sequel to the documentary. We don't know who the lineup's going to be, but apparently it's... Look, I can't say that it's definitely going ahead.
No, well, it's definitely not going ahead. I think the one
But
thing.
some people have put money in. So they're already calling
Wait,
Burning
hang-
Man
hang-
Fire Festival 2 is my point.
Hang on, this is the. Sorry, I'm looking this up. So there were. The headline is Fire Festival 2 pre-sale tickets sell out. Right. There were 100 tickets.
Yeah.
That's not enough to make a festival.
But
Like,
it's Billy McFarlane, of course it's not enough. What do you say? He sold 100 tickets and he's like, he's
This'll be enough,
booking
mate.
Beyonce on the 100 tickets. But the hilarious thing is, he still wants this. He still wants to have it on an island. The one thing that you can learn from the whole debacle, as was also proved sadly by the world's funniest island festival in Sydney at one point,
Yes.
it's a terrible idea to have a festival on an island because it's very expensive.
You know what he should do? He should have it in the desert in Nevada. Nothing would go wrong.
With a sort of Waterworld series of floating. See, if the whole of Burning Man was done on inflatables, that would have been fun. I'm just looking at some of the details of the Fire Factory. That's right. It was a cheese sandwich in a foam box was the gourmet food. At one point, he asked a gay employee of the Fire Fest to give a blowjob to a supplier.
Yes, I remember
So that
that.
the ticket holders could get water, which I think, I'm not an expert in industrial law, but or particularly Bahamian industrial law, I'm pretty sure that's not allowed.
Well, and I think actually homosexuality was illegal in that state as well.
Bahamas.
Like it was
Yeah, yeah.
particularly egregious. That is so fucking funny.
I mean, I feel like we kind of have to go.
Yep, we're doing it.
I don't know. I just feel like it is time.
I just love the idea that he's boasting that he sold 100 tickets.
And-
Because I've just seen a tweet from him. The first Fire Festival to drop has sold out.
And I love
And
that
so
he's
it's
using the same
100
name.
tickets. It's
Like, surely you'd come up with some other
Yeah,
name.
yeah,
Is it
not
Fire
a,
Festival?
the Not a Scam Festival.
The Not a Fire Festival. It's extraordinary. It's basically... Oh, well, I mean, it's been done. It's the Titanic 2.
Yes.
I mean, it's the Clive Palmer Titanic 2
This-
of festivals.
Well, or it's the Titan submersible.
yes, it's the Titan. That's right.
It's probably the island's going to be made out of some sort of composite material.
Yeah, I presume that the travel there will be on Zeppelins. So there you go.
And there's no lineup is announced.
No, of course not. You just all you're doing,
And we did
is
not
buying
share-
the brand.
We did not share the location.
No, you're buying the brand. You're buying the chance to tell your children, if you survived, that you were there at the Fire Festival too. I can kind of see the appeal of that, certainly
Yeah.
versus going to Burning Man. But the one thing I'd say, Charles, is this does make Splendor look like
what's
a good
hap-
festival.
You know what's happened? This is very shrewd of
Yeah.
this guy. Is he did the first drop, put them on sale, while there was all these people just waiting in the desert in Nevada going, where am I going for my next festival? They're the people who bought the tickets.
Well, I reckon what's going to happen is that Billy's going to reveal that the site of Fire Festival 2 is in a small area in Byron Bay in July. It's Splendor in the Grass.
Yes.
And the one thing that will make it worse, was it last year that Splendor was a complete raging disaster?
I think most
years it's very muddy,
But yeah, no, definitely last year was.
But the
was
problem,
hilarious.
last year they had to cancel the first day of it, if I recall.
yeah.
But the thing about, at least you're on land with
Yes.
Splendor.
Yes. But in fairness to the Splendor in the Grass people, who would have thought that it would rain heavily in a place called the Northern Rivers?
So basically, the moral of this story is nobody should have anything fun. Nobody should plan anything fun ever again.
No.
But that if they do,
Yes.
do it indoors. You know where's a great place for a music gig?
Where?
A fucking theatre with a roof that has comfortable seats, emergency exits, and most importantly, is not on a fucking island or in the middle of the desert in Nevada. If you are there, by the way, if anyone is listening and manages to get out and wants to tell us the story, we'll interview you about what it was like. Our podcast at chaser.com.au. You send us an email.
Yeah.
The person who we know who might have been there, if they make it out alive, we might get them on.
Yeah, that's
as
a
well.
great idea. Although I think we've sort of defamed him. I'm sure all his sexually transmitted diseases have cleared up by now. Our gurus from Road, we are part of the Iconoclast Network.
And Charles is the one to see you for that little jab, old friend.
See ya.